Well, listeners, one of the films that I have been looking forward to the most this year is now out on streaming platforms. It's called The Debt Collector, and the reason I was so excited about this film was not only because it was written and directed by Richard Wolstencroft, but a lot of my friends are involved with this film as well, and I kind of felt like I was on set most of the time because it felt like I was watching it through their videos and photos that were popping up on social media everywhere. But we thought we would actually get Richard on the phone today to chat a little bit about this great new Aussie film. Welcome to the program, Richard.
Thanks, mate. How are you?
I am really well. Now, mate, I've got to say, like I said, I was so excited about watching this movie, and then I sat down and watched it and absolutely loved it. So tell us a little bit about where The Debt Collector, where this idea came from for you.
Well, it's taken a long time to kind of go from idea to shooting it to finishing it. It's taken about 8 years, believe it or not. So I began working on it around 2016, and we shot it in 2017, 2018. And, it was, I did a documentary called The Last Days of Joe Blow about the adult film industry, and I did this other kind of more avant-garde film that I shot in about 7 or 8 countries around the world called The Second Coming Volume 1 and 2. And I finished that in 2016, and I wanted to do something that was a kind of more a return to genre, and I wanted to work with John Brumpton again, because he had a little role in my film, The Beautiful and Damned. He had a support part in that film, and I thought I wanted to make a film that was a bit like a Charles Bronson film starring John Brumpton, so that was sort of the idea. And, John liked the idea, and so we put it together, and away we went,
Yeah, everyone I speak to has got such amazing, great words to say about John. I'm good friends with Ray Mooney, and he talks about John Brumpton a lot. What is it about John that makes him such a special guy to work with?
Well, he's an incredible actor. I saw him in porno. That was the thing, that film Porno, as in, it's not porno as in porno film, but like Pawn Shop. So that was a film, I can't remember the filmmaker who made it, but, it was shot in Footscray, and John was like a pawn shop owner. And, also I saw him in that new Romper Stomper kind of TV series where he, came back as the same character he played in the original film, and he was excellent in that as well. And, he's just great in just about every film he's been in. My old friend John Hewitt, who I made Bloodlust with 30 years ago, he worked with him on a film called Red Ball, with his wife Belinda McClory in the late 90s. So, I just wanted to, work with him in a more substantial way. So a Sydney writer by the name of Matthew Clayfield and myself, we came up with this idea about a guy who had been, molested by these priests, and he'd kind of run away from the orphanage. He was originally born in Ireland, so he returns to Ireland, got into trouble with the IRA over there, where he was sort of a bit of a hitman for the IRA. And then he comes back to Australia and just tries to fit in and blend in as a normal kind of citizen. And then just, after a few years of living here, it just kind of irks him that these priests who had done this to him are still around. And, he's obviously now a trained killer. And I guess, he just, wakes up one week and thinks, oh, well, I'm going to do something about this. So, he sets about, taking care of these 4 pedophile priests and 1 teacher. And then when he's taking care of one of the teachers, he rescues the character played by Kristen Condon. And she has been a victim of sexual assault by these 5 other men. And so she convinces the John Brumpton character to sort of go on another killing spree. So it's a bit of a, kind of Charles Bronson kind of affair, to some extent. But obviously it's got a cast of, Australian independent actors. Roger Ward obviously is in it. He plays a kind of arch nemesis of the main character, who was involved in the Ulster and Irish conflict. He's been living up in Queensland. Roger Ward is in it. Andy McPhee is in it, who he plays a gangster who is sort of the brother of one of the characters who gets killed, who goes on a vengeance cycle himself. There's a lot of, great talent like that. Jack Ellis, who was in Mr. In Between recently, he's in it. Obviously, I mentioned Kristen Condon. Whitney Duff is in it. Gregory Packus is in it. Ray Mooney is in it. Frank Housen, who passed away sadly this year, he has a supporting part in it. John Flaus. So, it's got a pretty unique... Nathan Hill is in it. He's another independent filmmaker who helped out getting the film through post and stuff. So, it's been great.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the cast a bit later on, but I wanted to touch on your screenwriting for this, because what I love about this movie is, yes, it's a genre flick, but it touches on something that, especially at the time when you would have been writing this, that Australia was kind of consumed by, the whole Catholic Church thing with Pell going to court and things like that. How much of what you were watching in the news and what was going on in the world at that time did you actually manage to capture into your screenplay as well?
Well, I thought there was a lot of royal commissions going on, into the Catholic Church, and I thought it was a timely film to come up with, like what would happen if, say, one of the children that had been abused, grew up to be a killer, and to be a lethal weapon sort of thing, when he grew up. How might he react to that situation? So it was that kind of idea that Matthew Clayfield and I developed on, and then we wanted to also make it, almost a kind of, it's just very fast moving. We wanted to make it 90 minutes, and we wanted it just to be, there's about 20 or 30 people get killed in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's pretty quick, pretty fast moving. So we just thought we wanted to, do something, and we wanted it to sort of spiral out of control, what was happening in the film. And I think we sort of achieved that. And obviously we shot it on a very low budget, under $100,000. But, we've been lucky it's come out now all around the world. So that's been great.
So tell us a little about that, working on with such a tight budget. I know that you guys have got some amazing locations that you use in the film, and I know some of them are people who feature in the film's properties and stuff that you've used there. But for those young filmmakers that are out there listening, how do you make a movie that looks as good as this on such a low budget?
Well, people have commented before. Ideally, if you're going to make a film, say on $50,000 or $100,000, it's best to use, one or two locations, and like a horror film set in a house in the middle of nowhere. And, that way you've already got really one main location to worry about. But, people have noticed before that, obviously with my film Bloodlust, that has about 30 or 40 speaking parts. I make sort of low-budget epics. I don't know how I do it. Yeah. It's just, I guess I know a lot of people through the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, and also just for having made films in this country for 30, 35 years now. I know I'm 55 now, unfortunately. And, I just know a lot of people, and, I know a lot of people who've got, nice houses sometimes, or sometimes you want a crappy house, or sometimes you want a place, in the country. I used David Thrussell's house in this film, who did the soundtrack. He's a tiny cameo as one of the gang members at the end of the film. So, we just use things like that, and we're just lucky, I guess, to have been able to put it all together. It was kind of hard to do at the time, but we just, flew by the seat of our pants, and away we went.
Do you do a lot of the location scouting yourself? Because I think that first, the first place that John visits in the movie is just an amazing place. How did you discover somewhere like that?
Oh, look, that was a place I went by all the time near where I live. It's just actually it looks like a monastery, but it's actually an old retirement home for old people. So, I just went and said, can we just film in your, in your yard or whatever on like half a day? And then we did some drone shots, We came back on a different day and did the drone shots. So, we also did some second unit later, afterwards. Mark Bacardis, who helped edit the film, he did a little bit of second unit stuff for me later on that we shot at a different time. So, it's just all piecing it together, and I think it's a pretty good looking product for the budget we had. It was it's the catering budget of most Aussie films, that have got a budget of $3 or $4 million or whatever. We've made this film on what it costs to feed the cast and crew. So I don't know how we do it, but obviously I would like to work with a larger budget one day, but no one's ever given me one, mate, so I continue to make these independent films. I live in hope one day, but, I'm very controversial, as you well know, so someone's got to really take a chance and embrace all that.
Oh, mate, I would love to see you work on a film with a sort of $10 million budget or something. I think you would produce absolute magic.
Of course I would. And, it's just, look, I know I'm controversial, but, isn't that interesting? Like, growing up, it was filmmakers like Lars von Trier and stuff who were ultra-controversial, who would go to Cannes and say terrible things. They're the filmmakers I found interesting, because they're confronting people with, confronting ideas, and that's what, at least when I was, first decided to become a filmmaker, when I was 20 or whatever, that's what I thought you should do. And obviously, this industry, this is all politically correct, and there's all the whole cancel culture now. I've been cancelled 3 or 4 times. It's unbelievable. And then there's all the wokeness, so in diversity, this, that, and the other. I hate all of that, and I think it's all bullshit. It's not that I have a problem with if people want to make diverse films, go ahead and do it, but you shouldn't like make a film that's like a Stalinist art, like based around ideology or whatever. It's like, oh no, we think this has to be in the film. No, it should be whatever you want it to be about.
Exactly.
And and that's always what I've tried to program at Mark, and also with the films I make. So.
Definitely. No, I want to go back to the plot as well, because you and Matthew have come up with an amazing plot line that runs all the way through this film. Tell us a little bit about those initial screenwriting ideas, because as you said before, even for the character of Vaughn, you haven't gone for a one-dimensional Hollywood character. You've given him a backstory, and that backstory comes back to haunt him through this film.
Yeah.
What was that initial screenwriting process like with Matthew, where you plotted all of this out? Because it turns out to be an amazing plot.
Well, we did a lot of writing on this film. We worked on it, pretty much intensely for a couple of years, and we did it with about 8 or 9 drafts. But the funny thing is when we shot it, we about half the film is improvised. So, but if you have a strong base, which we had with a strong script, then we could improvise things. You know what I mean, as well. So, that was sort of that's just what we decided to do, and. We wanted to develop a sort of complex story. I mean, obviously, we're influenced. I'd shown Matthew the film The Magician. Obviously, that was made by Scott Ryan. And obviously, that was made for something like $10,000, even way cheaper than my own film.
Yeah.
And, that was incredible. And then, obviously, that was made into that brilliant TV series, Mr. In Between. And, this was something I thought we could make the film, and maybe we could turn it into a TV series later down the line. Because it's sort of the idea that could be expanded into something bigger. So, I'm talking to some producers about that now, and, I'm also developing a new project, another kind of genre thing. Obviously, genre is the kind of thing I like, and obviously that's, what I've always really supported at the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, and I'm sort of known as the genre guy, because I love that classic period of, what's called Ozploitation,
yep.
Cinema that was covered in that documentary, Not Quite Hollywood, that kind of filmmaking, from the mid to late 70s, Mad Max and Turkey Shoot and all those kind of films that I love. And then I guess filmmakers like myself and Johnny Hewitt, and people like Mark Savage and other filmmakers that have come through Muff, like James Wan and Lee Winnell and Gregory Packus and Stuart Simpson, and a whole bunch of interesting people have come up who have an interest in genre as well, and have carried on this kind of tradition of Ozploitation filmmaking into a new generation.
Talking of Ozploitation and genre filmmaking in Australia, your cast is a who's who of Australian genre cinema. We mentioned John Brompton, but of course you've got so many other people in there as well. Tell us a little bit about that casting process. How did people like Ray Mooney end up in there? Because of course Ray is known as a crime writer, but he also had a small role in Red Ball. How did all of that come about for you?
Well, I just knew a lot of people through, the film festival, and obviously, Ray's a friend of John Brompton, so I imagine I got Ray through John. John obviously knows an incredible amount of actors, so we just said, look, we're doing this. There's no money or whatever. We're just paying everybody actors equity minimum, and that's it. Away we went. I was able to find a lot of interesting people through the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, and then also once we got a few of the main cast, we were able to find other people. And I've been pretty lucky with a lot of my films, getting some really interesting people in all my films over the years. From Bloodlust to Pearls Before Swine, which I made in the late 90s, to The Beautiful and Damned, which I made in the 2000s, to this Second Coming Volume 1 and 2, and now with The Debt Collector.
So, Richard, we always ask this question to people who make films with low budgets, off the back of me almost being arrested during one of my shoots for one of my short films. Shooting on a small budget for this film, what was the toughest scenes for you to have shot?
Well, we have a few sequences that were very elaborate action sequences. John Fox did all the gunplay in the film, and obviously, if we were, paying what you'd call the industry standard rate for that, that would have cost the budget of the film itself. But, John is an old friend of mine. He worked on Bloodlust many years ago. He's worked on a few of my films. And, that shootout sequence at the end took about 2 days to shoot. And, we only... it would normally have taken a week for a normal filmmaker to shoot that, but we just shot it again. When you're doing a low budget film like this, you have to get it in 3 or 4 takes and then move on next, and then hopefully at the end you've got something. And I mean, there are sequences in the film that are missing, or that didn't turn out as good as we would have liked, or some have been shortened. And the original cut of the film was 2 hours long. So I never know, I might release that one day, or at least release some of the deleted scenes. But at the moment, there's a DVD and Blu-ray out that you can order on Amazon from Bounty and Black Neon over in the United States. So you can order that if you go to Amazon.com. Just put in The Debt Collector and John Brumpton, who's the star. And because there is another film called The Debt Collector, some genre film that was made in the last 8 years. I think it just so happened that we were making a film that had the same title at the same time that they were doing it. So what are you going to do? I couldn't be bothered changing it. And there can be more than one film with the same title, and there you go. And ours is better anyway, because this is a generic bullshit.
Well, mate, I've got to finish off by saying congratulations. This is an absolutely amazing film, and I know a lot of people out there who's been very excited about knowing that it's coming out and wanting to see it. So I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to our listeners out there who are planning on going out this weekend and grabbing a copy or watching it on a streaming platform? What would you like to say to them?
Well, yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. It's on YouTube, it's on Vimeo, and it's on Google Play. Yeah, look, just get out there and support, independent cinema, independent Australian cinema. That's been my message, for 30 years since I started making films myself, and also with the Melbourne Underground Film Festival. For example, Kid Snow is a film written by John Brumpton. It's about boxing. Paul Goldman has directed it. That's on at the moment, I think. And there are many other films that all the people who are involved in my film, all the cast and crew, that they've all worked on. So just look into, the local talent and support Australian cinema. And because that's how we have an exciting local industry. And that's what I've always been about. And that's, all controversy and bullshit aside, that's all I've ever really been about. And, I think that's a good thing.